Hello, Internet. I am Parsha Becky, and we are back for another week of Parsha. So, this week we are continuing in the fourth book of Chumash, the book of Bamidbar. As you know, I'm sure Bamidbar means in the desert, because for the whole book of Bamidbar, the Jewish people are traveling in the desert on our way to the land of Israel. Now, this week's Parsha is called Pinchas, and you should remember Pinchas from our last week's video, because right at the end of last week's Parsha in Balak, Pinchas actually saved everyone, because when the people were making a bad choice of praying to the Moabite idols, the idols from the people of Moab and Midian, because the people of Moab and Midian were trying to convince them to do that, Pinchas made sure to punish the person who was leading everyone in doing this, to get everyone to stop. And Pinchas took that initiative, and he made everyone stop praying to the idols. And now this week's Parsha picks up. It's named after Pinchas because the start of the Parsha, Hashem says to Moshe, Pinchas did a really good thing. Pinchas made everyone stop making these bad choices of praying to idols. So Pinchas is going to get a special promise from Hashem forever that he and his family will always have peace and be connected to peace. He'll get a reward of shalom. And the Parsha continues. Hashem now says to Moshe that we're going to count up all the people. Now, if you remember, if you were following the Parsha way back at the beginning, way back at the beginning of the book of Bamidbar, back in the first Parsha of Bamidbar, in the Parshat Bamidbar, when we were starting off the book of Bamidbar, we actually counted up all the people back then. Because we need to know, how many people we have to do different jobs and where everyone's going to stay as we travel in the desert. So why do we need to count everyone again? Well, back in Bamidbar, that was right when we were starting on our journey through the desert. But if you remember a few weeks ago, in the Parsha of Parshat Shlach, in the story of the spies, part of the punishment of the people whining after the spies came and saying that they want to go back to Egypt, part of the punishment was that the people would be wandering in the desert for 40 years, and only the next generation, only the people who were younger than 20 years old when the spies happened would be the people who would, after 40 years, get to go into Israel, other than Yehoshua and Caleb, who also said good things and said that they know that we'll be able to go in. So they get to go, and they're the only people who are over 20 at the time who will get to go to Israel. So remember, we had to wander in the desert for 40 years, but by now, in Parshat Pinchas, those 40 years are over. So we've got people who weren't born 40 years ago when we counted people before. We've got people who are grown-ups now who were kids then, who can do jobs that they couldn't do before. We've got people who are old enough that they should be retired, who were doing the jobs 40 years ago, who shouldn't be doing the jobs anymore because they're ready to retire. So by now, 40 years have passed. It's important to count everyone up again, especially as we're preparing near the end of our 40 years to go into Israel. Because again, the numbers of people will matter to divide up the land. Because everyone who goes into Israel for the first time, right after when we go in after our travels in the desert, everyone's going to get their own piece of land in Israel. So it's important to count everyone up, so we'll know how to divide things up, count them up by Shevet, by tribe, from the 12 tribes. So we'll know exactly how to divide up the land and how many people get how many pieces of land. So they count up everyone. And when I say everyone gets their own piece of land, I should mention an important exception, because the rule at that time was the boys got land, because that was how their society worked at the time, that usually the girls would live with their family, so they would have their father's land, or with whoever they married, they would live with on their husband's land, and they would stay with their family until they got married. So it was only the boys who are getting land, according to this rule right now when we're counting. And this is important because after we count everyone up, there are 5 girls, 5 sisters. 5 sisters, their names are Machla, Noah, Chogla, Milka, and Tirza. You don't need to remember their names. It's not going to be a test. 5 sisters. The 5 sisters have a problem, and they come to Moshe, and they say, hey, Moshe, we've got a problem. We think that the rule that only the boys get land in Israel is not a fair rule. And we've got an especially big problem because our father has passed away over the course of the 40 years. He wasn't getting extra punished for being part of Korach's big rebellion. If you remember a few weeks back in Parshat Korach, he wasn't trying to fight against Moshe or against Hashem, but he's just not around anymore. And we don't have any brothers. So our whole family is just girls. We're 5 sisters. And it's not fair that our family wouldn't get a piece of land in Israel just because we don't have any brothers and our father's not around anymore. That's not fair. We want land. We want to get our own land for our family in the land of Israel. And Moshe says, you make a good point. I need to ask Hashem about that, because you know what? Your argument makes sense. And Moshe says, Hashem, these 5 sisters say that they want land because they don't have any boys in their family and they don't think it's fair that only boys get land. And Hashem says they are right. These 5 girls, the daughters of Tzlafchad, these 5 sisters are absolutely right, Hashem says. And you know what? We need to fix the rules. There's going to be a new rule that if somebody doesn't have any sons, then his daughters will get his land. And that way girls can have land too, and that way it's fair. So every family who enters Israel will have land, whether they have boys or girls or both. So they solve the girls' problem. And the Parsha continues. Hashem says, Moshe, you see that mountain over there? It's time, Moshe, for you to climb that mountain. And from the top of that mountain, you're going to get to see the whole land of Israel. Because Moshe, if you remember, you're not going to get to go into Israel, but I'm going to give you a special view of Israel from the top of that mountain. And then that's it. When you get to the top of the mountain and look at Israel, you're going to be finished leading the Jewish people, and they'll be ready to go into Israel without you. And Moshe says, hang on, Hashem. Hang on, because there's a problem in what you're suggesting. I'm ready and okay to take my look at Israel now and retire, but the Jewish people need a leader. You can't have people wandering around with no leader. How are they supposed to go into Israel without a leader? Now, it doesn't have to be me, but they have to have someone to be the leader to help everyone figure out what to do. And Hashem says, Moshe, that is a good point. So Hashem says, Moshe, you have a special assistant. Your assistant, if you guys remember, we've learned before, but Moshe's assistant, Yehoshua, Hashem says, take your assistant Yehoshua and stand him up in front of everyone where everyone can see. And Yehoshua is going to be the next leader. And Hashem says, I want you to tell everyone that Yehoshua is going to be the next leader. And then you're going to put your hands on Yehoshua's head. These hands are Moshe's hands. This is Yehoshua's head. Works better with the second person. You're going to put your hands on Yehoshua's head to show everyone that you're putting your authority, your leadership from you into Yehoshua. And in fact, this is really cool because when somebody becomes a rabbi, their teacher actually puts their hands on their head and they pass that along. And the word for becoming a rabbi, for getting a rabbi degree, is called getting smicha. And smicha means putting your hands in your head, because we get it all the way back. The first time somebody made someone else a rabbi was when Moshe put his hands on Yehoshua's head and put that authority into Yehoshua. And that is the tradition that we follow when people become rabbis. They get that authority passed down into them by putting their hands on their head. So someone else's hands on their head. Their teacher's hands on their head. So Yehoshua gets Moshe's hands on his head in front of everyone, and everyone sees that Yehoshua is going to be the next leader after Moshe. And at the end of the Parsha, Hashem reminds Moshe about all the different korbanot that we bring, but specifically the ones that we bring not for special reasons, not because something happened, but the ones that we bring on a regular basis. The ones that we bring every day because they're special daily korbanot. The ones that we bring every week for Shabbat. The ones that we bring every month on Rosh Chodesh. And the ones that we bring every year for the holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot and Pesach and Shavuot. So the Torah reminds us of the different korbanot, the different presents that we bring to Hashem on a regular basis, every day, every week, every month, and every year, that we bring to the Mishkan or to the Beit HaMikdash. And Moshe shares this reminder with all of the Jewish people. And that is the end of this week's Parsha. Shabbat Shalom, and I will see you next week.